Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today with US Congressional Candidate Kendall Qualls. Kendall, it's just great to have you here. I so appreciate you joining us with your busy schedule. I know you're running around with your hair on fire, right?
Yes, yeah, Julie, thank you for having me. And yeah, hair on fire, whatever's left of it. Yeah, things are going very well. It's very positive. I'm glad to do this.
Super exciting. Thank you so much. I just like to start the show like I do with all of my shows and ask you to just share some things about yourself. Tell us about your background and how you got to where you are right now.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. You know, it's interesting. First of all, I tell people I never wanted to be involved in politics. It was not something on my bucket list. You know, my background really started just like many people across the country. You know, I started my life actually in Harlem, New York, of all places. I didn't start out in the best of places. I'm very fortunate. I started out in a great country. You know, my parents divorced when I was young. My dad just got back from Vietnam, and my mother and all of my siblings moved to our maternal grandparents' home in Harlem, New York. Now, this was in the late 1960s, and it's much like what's going on in our cities today. It was really chaotic. If you want to know what defunding the place looks like, I can tell you. You know, I've seen it, I've lived it. It's awful, awful way to live. And so I lived a few years in elementary school there with my mom. My mother just could not handle all five of us. My older brothers and sisters were getting absorbed in the street culture. And so my father came and got me to live with him in Oklahoma. And because he was paying alimony and child support, all he could afford was a trailer. So started my childhood in Oklahoma, New York City. I've been called trailer trash, ghetto kid, and a lot worse. But I tell people, you know, the best thing is you know what, in this country, where you start your life is not necessarily where you have to stay for your life. So that was my start. And I worked full-time through college, went on active duty after college, and then started my civilian career after 5 years on active duty. I started with Johnson & Johnson.
Wow. So how with the military, I know that you were a colonel, is that right?
Yeah, no, I left the military after 5 years. I served as an artillery officer here at home and abroad in South Korea. I was newly married at the time.
Wow.
We had no kids at the time, so Sheila and I, we've been married now for 34 years. But after I got out of the military, I started in my civilian career, and one of the things I just got was just the phenomenal leadership training, exposure to a lot of different things, you know, stress under fire, the whole bit. So glad to serve.
That's for sure. Oh, wow. What a background. So I'm interested in talking about your experience in moving from corporate America to the healthcare startup. Tell us about that startup. Tell us about the work that you're doing with that company.
Sure. So let me explain the problem we're solving first. Then I can tell you about the technology behind it. So at any given time, there's a fair percentage of cancer patients will receive a treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery, that provides little to no beneficial outcome. The latest reports that we've read is anywhere from 20 to 30%. In fact, in January of 2018, when the Wall Street Journal, Dr. Stephen Katz from the University of Michigan School of Medicine, there's a quote in that article where he said there was tens of thousands of women that received chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery they didn't need. So what our platform is, it's an AI platform, one of the largest databases of cancer patients, longitudinal data. And so, Julie, God forbid you get diagnosed with cancer. If you want to know how the treatment was for patients at your age, your demographic, and your diagnosis, we can give you how effective that treatment was for all of those patients, thousands of patients in your category, before you have your first treatment. So you go into those meetings more informed.
Wow. I mean, I think too that being informed is everything when you're trying to make a life-changing decision about which path to take. right?
Exactly. Exactly.
How can you have, yeah. Wow. Wow. So how does this information get dispersed? How do people have access to it? Do you sell it to hospitals, or how does it work?
Yeah, so we're working through the details of that right now before I took a leave of absence. But one route we're taking was making it available to major corporations, basically self-insured employers, regardless of their size, making it available to them as a health benefit package.
Oh,
Basically, they would pay for it and make it available to their employees that are diagnosed with cancer. And this information is kept independent between our company and their employee, the patient. So the company never gets information, nor the insurance company. And we share that information. And what we have seen is that 30% of patients, when they see this information, they'll decide to alter the recommended treatment based on this information, putting more control in their hands to make the best decision.
very interesting. So when do you guys have you got? I know you said you're taking a leave of absence because, of course, you're running for Congress, and it's probably tough to wear both hats because there's so much there, right?
Right.
So based on let's just assume that you win. You know, when the election comes around, how does that change your timeline for launch, and when do you anticipate the launch will occur?
Yeah. They'll backfill my position, and when I win,
Okay.
so we're screening for people to backfill. But here's a neat scenario. This is exactly what we're wanting in healthcare overall. We're wanting transparency for patients,
Yes.
so they can make more informed decisions.
Exactly.
And when they do make more informed decisions, what we're finding in our model is that employers and/or Medicare, depending on who's they save over 50% of the cost. So even though only 30% will make a treatment alteration, significant cost savings, especially in cancer. It's the most expensive diagnosis in healthcare, and it's increasing in cost every year by double digits. So we're providing the kind of the best of both worlds: transparency, empowerment for the patient, and then obviously we're willing to find some cost savings. But we're doing cost savings without lowering the standard of care or quality of care.
Gosh, there's so much here. I feel like we should probably have you back on the show to talk more
That's another
about
podcast.
this when you're a little bit further down the line. Seriously, because especially the buzz for me on this, of course, because our listeners are a lot of privately held companies. The buzz for me on this was that it could be a healthcare benefit that employers could provide to their employees, and
Right.
yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. So I have to ask, why did you run for Congress?
Yeah, sure. Let me give you some context behind that. So again, I shared that I served on active duty for 5 years.
Yes.
My father served for 25 years. My brother also served. My wife and I, we've known each other since high school. Her dad served for 30 years. He was in the Korean War and Vietnam War, and all of her brothers. So I call the military the family business.
No kidding.
So 2 years ago, when the new Congress took over, this Nancy Pelosi's new Congress, I started hearing things I've never heard before, that we're a racist country. I'm saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe an elected officials, and we're not. We're systemically racist. That's not true either. We don't like immigrants. That's not true. And then the classical one that was a tipping point for me was when Ilhan Omar said that she compared ISIS and Al-Qaeda to the US Army. And what began to shock me was no longer their statements, their radical statements. It was no one else in the party recalibrated their statements. No one else in the party defended the country. And not even in my district. And I said, number one, that's dangerous. That is so dangerous because these people are elected officials. When the lay public hears this and they don't hear anyone contradicting those statements in their party, they're going to assume it's the truth. And for me, I was concerned. And again, this was 2 years ago. I filed to run for office in July of 19. And I felt like I needed to make a stance for our country. We're not a systemically racist country. We're not a racist country. We're a country of immigrants. If anything that was going on south of the border, we're a country of laws that are not being followed. And so I felt I needed to take a stance, and I did this. I stepped forward as an American citizen, and I tell some people this all the time. When I took that oath in office, when I was as an Army officer in my early 20s, that oath doesn't have an expiration date.
Yes. So do you remember the words of that oath?
Absolutely. Do you support and defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic?
Mm. Inspiring as heck. So I'm just, I'm thrilled that you were able to join us today, Kendall. And is there anything else that you would like to say or share about your thoughts and the work that you plan to do when you get elected? I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you plan to do.
Yes, again, I share with people, look, the last thing I ever wanted to do was get involved in politics, but I love our country more than I hate politics. So yes, I'm going to do the job as a congressman, and I'm going to tell people you're not going to agree with 100% of the votes that I cast, but I'll make you darn proud that you actually voted, that you cast a vote on my behalf. I'll make you darn proud. The other part of this is, look, I know we're in our darkest times right now as a country, but you know what? This is a great country. I have tremendous belief that we'll get past this in an optimistic way. And I would say if you want hope, if you want, this is the direction you should go, is go with me as a congressman and us as a party, because we're standing up for the values that have made this country stand through so much over the last 200 years. And if you want to find out more, you can go to kendallforcongress.com, and it's Kendall, F-O-R, Congress.com.
Kendallforcongress.com. Fantastic. Well, Kendall, I so appreciate again your being on the show today, and I truly mean it. I would love to have you back on to talk more about your healthcare company. I think that there's a lot more to talk about and share with that. But for today, I think we're just going to wrap up like we normally do, and asking you to share a couple of words of advice for our listeners. Coming from your entrepreneurial background now, what are a couple things that you'd like to have our listeners take away?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, and I get asked this question quite a bit. I graduated from the University of Michigan Business School, and there's always students that are out there looking to start things. I said, you know what, before you start building, and obviously your clients already have their businesses, they're looking to transition. What problem are we solving? What problem, what gap are we trying to fill that in the marketplace that can be clearly articulated to people? Oftentimes, even if that gap or that need is not even clearly known by your customer, it's still a gap and it's still a need. So I think that the way we can communicate that the best, and this is how when you asked me my startup, I explained the problem we're solving first, and it made everything else work.
And I think that really aligns with, that whole conversation about why we do what we do. If you've ever listened to Simon Sinek, he has a video that he recorded many years ago called It Starts With Why. And he really identifies how people actually buy what you're selling. Right. If you're selling an idea, if you're selling a service, whatever it is that you're selling, your why and the buyer's why have to align, right? If I stand for what you value, then I'm going to follow you around, which is why I have you on the show, because I love what you stand for. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, for sure. This is great. Are your kids, by the way, are they in college, or I didn't even ask you about your kids. I know I have several kids myself. So tell me a little bit about your kids before we.
Sure. That they're not much kids anymore, but we have 5 kids, and they're 4 adults. And so I tell people we have 2 things that we haven't had in a long time, especially with the boys gone. We've had free time and leftovers.
Right.
And so with the boys gone, we have milk that's expiring and everything. But anyway, we have my oldest daughter graduated from Colorado Christian University. She is a preschool teacher here in the Twin Cities. My oldest son, Joshua, graduated from St. Olaf. He graduated last year. Within 30 days, he got a new job. He moved to Austin, Texas, and he got married. So we have a
Wow.
daughter-in-law as well.
Well,
My middle son
congratulations.
graduated from New Mexico Military Institute, and he's on active duty now. He's the 4th generation, serving on active duty at Fort Riley, Kansas. And I have a daughter here that's going to community college, and she just graduated last year from high school, and a son that's in a sophomore in high school.
Wow. You guys are still a busy household then.
Yes.
But yeah, it's nice to have leftovers. Your grocery bill goes down when the boys move out. I have to say that too, for sure. Well, again, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time today. And I wish you all the luck in the world with the election. And I'm telling everyone that they need to vote for you because of who you are and what you stand for. For our listeners, this episode is going to be available at our website, poisedforexit.com, where you can also order a copy of my book, and which is now available on Kindle, actually. Please rate, review, and subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We really appreciate your support. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and please join us again next time.